Honey, honey,
What?
wake up.
What?
I heard something go bump in the night.
What?
Hi, George here, and welcome to Tales from Target Suite, where I'll share my perspective on guns and shooting, and we'll spend some time at the range, like we are here at the farm in Louisiana today. But every now and then we'll reconvene out in my shop back in Houston, or here at the farm where I'll share some fun projects and we'll have an adventure or two that'll make even a grown man smile. You know, we Americans love our guns, don't we? And I'm not the least bit ashamed of that. In fact, the latest Gallup poll that I could find, it was one from 2018, indicates that 43% of the American households have guns in them. Now, polls being what they are, your mileage may vary, but nonetheless, whether you use guns to hunt with, or to compete with, or to just have fun with, or whether you have guns to deter tyranny or for personal protection, they are a part of the very fabric of our nation. And for the sake of our friend, our imaginary friend at the beginning of the video, I hope he at least was one of those 43%. But here's the question I want to ask today, and it's a serious question. If you hear something go bump in the night, is the firearm you reach for to defend your family also going to put them at risk in the event that you have to discharge rounds inside your home? And to help answer that question, I'm going to build a house. Well, maybe not a house. Stay tuned. But first, let me say, the impetus for this video came a couple of weeks ago when I was having lunch with a brother from church. Let's call him Phil. And Phil asked me for some guidance on buying a firearm for home defense. Now, Phil is from the UK, and he has no or almost no experience with firearms. Plus, he's got a couple of small children that live in the house with him in different places, and so he was concerned about that. Considering those things, I thought, you know what, a shotgun is probably the right option for Phil. But later that day, I started thinking I really hadn't given him enough information to make an informed decision. Plus, I think like a lot of people, had made the assumption that a shotgun inside the home is safer than a pistol or a rifle. But I really have no experience with that. And so that gets us back to our house. Now, I'm certainly not going to build a whole house, and for argument's sake, just ignore these black monoliths over here. But what we're going to do is we're going to build several walls, and then we're going to poke a bunch of holes in them to see how bulletproof they are. These wasps keep trying to get me. And I think we're going to learn together. I know I am, and so I hope you'll stick with me. And if you stick with me to the end, I'm going to dispel a very common myth about shotguns, one that's prolific on the internet. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't already, please click on subscribe. And then, if you click on that little bell, YouTube says you might get notification every time I upload a new video, usually on Tuesday. So where I really failed my friend Phil was in discussing the different kinds of ammunition that the shotgun can use, and how, depending on which ammunition you choose, you can dramatically alter how safe it is to use in the home. And so what I'm going to do right now is show you some of those different types of ammunition, and we'll talk a little bit about each one. But the first thing I'm going to do is cut them open, lay them out here so that you can see the type of shot or projectile that's in each one of those types of shotgun ammunition. So let me get going on that, and I won't make you watch the whole thing, but we'll cut in here in just a minute and start talking about the individual types of ammo. Let me get my coffee out of the way. So here we have it. From my left to right, these are all 12 gauge except for the one in the middle, by the way. This is a 20 gauge shell. But this is a slug. It's 435 grains of lead, traveling at about 1,600 feet per second. That puts this round up in the 45-70 category as far as power. It's used for deer hunting and zombies. And then the next is the ubiquitous double-aught buckshot. That's 00 buckshot. There's also triple-aught buckshot and #1 buckshot. But anyway, these pellets are 33 caliber and they weigh about 60 grains and they travel at 1,300 feet per second-ish. Great for deer hunting, also good for zombies. And then these are #3 buckshot. Smaller, but there's more of them. I actually killed my first deer when I was 14 years old. That was a long time ago. With #3 buck at very close range, I might add. #5 birdshot, typically used for pheasant or smaller waterfowl. And then #7.5 or 7s.5, however you want to say that. Dove hunters love this. Okay, one thing's for sure. There's a lot of opinions out there about what shotgun ammunition is the most effective. But what those discussions also often fail to mention is the risk factor of using each different type of ammunition in a home environment. And so that's going to be the focus of our video, as I've said from the very beginning. And through the power of editing, we're going to back up and I'm going to show you the process of building our house of walls. It won't take long, I promise. And then we're going to come back and with my shotgun, wherever it is, we're going to deconstruct those walls. Stay tuned. I said this was going to be mostly about shotguns, but I did put together a really simple fixture right here with 11 layers of sheetrock separated by some B-frames. That's about 1.25 inches or so space between each piece of sheetrock. So we'll get started and make some noise here with this one. Then we'll move back over to the house of walls. Now let me get my 45.
Oh, nice catch. Really nice catch.
All right, here goes 45 ACP. Okay, we really hate to destroy such a beautiful picture, but we do have it recorded for posterity. My first shot is going to be with number 7s.5. Let's see how many walls it will go through. Fire in the hole. Fire in the hole. So 7s.5 did a lot of damage. Here's number 5. Okay, so what we've got now is, this is going to be our last shot because I ran out of, I cut open the only number 3 buckshot that I had. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to shoot a slug and we're going to shoot double-aught buckshot at the same wall. And so hopefully I'll be able to keep them enough apart that they don't affect one another. So here we go with our last shot. Those things kick. Woo! Oh, man, those things kick. Woo! All right, here goes the buckshot, double-aught buckshot. That kicks too. Oh man. Okay, that's a lot of information. And let me summarize real quick, just to refresh. The buckshot and the slug, it went all the way through the fourth wall. The number 5 shot, it certainly penetrated the backside of the third wall, and a few of the pellets, as you can see from the video of the shot itself, some of the pellets actually went through this wall, but there was no sign of damage to this piece of sheetrock. And the number 7.5 pellets were all captured right here in the paper or just embedded barely into the gypsum, but no penetration on the backside for the number 7.5 shot. So what did we learn? Well, if you're concerned about over penetration, the number 7.5 shot, it went into the next room. If I'm the shooter over there, 7.5 shot went into this room, it went into this room, but it did not go into this room. The number 5 shot went through that room and this room, and some of the pellets went through this room, but I would say they weren't particularly energetic when they got here because they didn't even dimple this surface. The buckshot went through all 4 rooms, so if you're really concerned about over penetration, the double-aught buck and the slug are not your friend. If you're very concerned, then the number 7.5 shot is going to keep you in the first 2 rooms. Let me wrap this up, but I want to have a little transparency here. In the segment about when I shot the 5-gallon bucket of water with double-aught buckshot there, some of you will notice I didn't have on my safety glasses. And so I'm going to chalk that up to the pressures of filming. It's different, and we're getting used to that. And as we get more comfortable with filming, things like that will become less frequent. So with that little confessional out of the way, let me just ask, are you now thinking about a shotgun for home defense? Let me just say that what we learned here has me and my son Austin and my daughter Mallory all rethinking our current habit of using and depending on our carry weapons for home defense. But just like you, if you're thinking about this, we're going to have to consider what's the right shotgun ammunition to use inside of our house. Now remember that shotgun myth I was going to debunk? Well, let me read you a couple of quotes I pulled off of the internet. Here's the first quote. If a barrel is pointed in the general direction of the attacker, several pellets will hit and penetrate the intruder. Okay, here's another quote. A shotgun can be point shot, that is to say, without using the sights. Well, then that's true. But then he goes on to say, the shot spread will be sufficient to take out an adult attacker without much or very precise aim. Sorry, I had to go get this. If you'll remember, this wall was shot at about 10 feet. And that's about the distance that I think you should consider when you're thinking about home defense. And if you'll notice, the pattern size here is about that big around. And so that shot spread that these guys are talking about at the distances where you're likely to encounter issues inside the home, that shot spread has yet to develop. Certainly it will, but it's going to happen over the next 10, 20, 30 feet. And so keep that in mind. But hey, thanks for hanging with me. This has been a really long video, and I hope it's been both helpful and also entertaining to some degree. But back to that number 3 buckshot. I promise you, as soon as I can get my hands on a number 3 buckshot, I'm going to put these walls together again and shoot through it so that we can compare the potential over penetration with number 3 buckshot along with the double-aught buckshot and the slug. So that's going to be coming up. But until then, I just want to say thanks again. It's my privilege to bring content to you, and I hope you enjoy it. And I'll see you in the next video.